In the fall of 2022, after COVID began to settle down, we did a Viking Rhine River Cruise. There are other videos of the actual cruise, but flying at night into our first stop was Amsterdam in the Netherlands. Since Amsterdam is the start of the cruise, we actually didn't get to spend a lot of time roaming around, but we did get to see some of the city. Amsterdam was a small fishing village that took its name from a dam that was specifically built to control flooding, called Amstel Dam. Clever, huh? There's actually a lot of history here, from 3,000-year-old settlements and dealing with peatlands, but I'm not going to get into that. This is for traveling and for sightseeing. One of the things you notice right away is, in a way, it's like Boston. It's a youthful city. We stayed right next to the university, so there were a lot of bike riding young people. It's a fun city to roam around in, but be warned, the cyclists have the right of way, and they know it. And with pot being legal here, you can only hope that they're not stoned on those bike paths. These green signs mean you can smoke pot inside. Ignore my smile. The Dutch rebelled against Spain in the 16th century and was heavily involved in the Reformation, which included the 80 Years' War. As you can imagine, canals are everywhere. It wouldn't take much to put this entire city, as well as the country, under the North Sea. There is a separate video of the canal tour we went on. The Amsterdam office of the International Trading Dutch East India Company became the world's first stock exchange in 1609. Even now, Amsterdam is considered the commercial capital of the Netherlands and one of the top financial centers in Europe. Unfortunately, along with spices and teas from India, Amsterdam also became involved in the Atlantic slave trade. The city was a major destination port for Dutch slave ships beginning in the 17th century, which lasted until 1814, when it was abolished, believe it or not, at the request of the British government. There are many artists' homes and museums here to visit, like the Van Gogh or the Rembrandt House. We got to go to the Van Gogh Museum, but not the Rembrandt House. It was closed. You notice as you're walking around a lot of crooked houses and hooks on the front, and that's because these buildings actually used to be warehouses. Now they're condos, but the stairways are so narrow that you can't get anything up. So a lot of the furniture is hoisted up on these hooks. However, these buildings are so old that now there is not a whole lot of support behind those hooks if anybody's really trying to get anything heavy up into their condos. From where we were staying, you easily roam into the red light district. But what I saw in the window doesn't at all match my imagination or the stories I used to hear. You can't stand there and take pictures unless you don't mind getting punched by the bodyguard. So this picture is from across the canal. In 2021, the mayor announced a plan to close many of these red light district houses and relocate them to specifically designated erotic centers on the outskirts of the city. And that's probably why there's not, let's say, anything that matched my imagination there. If you do nothing else in Amsterdam, even if it's a couple of hour over flight from the airport, you need to try to get to the Anne Frank Museum. The Oudekerk, if I'm saying that correctly, was consecrated in 1306 and played a huge part in the Reformation as it violently changed from a Catholic church to a Protestant one. It was actually here that the term stinking rich came into being. You had to be extremely wealthy to be buried here, and there are a lot of burials that were here. And there were so many of them, and there was no embalming at the time, so the church began to stink so much that they couldn't even hold services in there. So the church hierarchy were told, you need to remove the stinking rich from inside the church. Another place you should try to see in Amsterdam is Dam Square. There is a national memorial statue there, built in the memory of Dutch soldiers and members of the resistance who died in World War II. Unfortunately, while we were there, the area was boarded up due to renovations. But the war in Europe ended May 7th, 1945. On that day, German soldiers fired machine guns into a large crowd that had gathered on Dam Square to celebrate the end of the war, killing over 30 people. Can you imagine being killed on the last day of the war, celebrating your liberation? We stopped at a cafe and this cat wouldn't go past the doorway. It's from Amsterdam that you board the Viking boat to start your trip down the Rhine. And Viking has this process down to a science, extremely organized and easy to work with. You get a chance to just get the lay of the ship, relax, get unpacked, and just chill until the captain says, I want to go that way. Onward to Kinderdijk.